Here are a couple of talks that we gave in the fall of 1985 that speak from our heart and from the truth of us. And we send them with all our love to our brothers on the West Coast. Also to Brother Ken W., to Brother Taro. We know of what you are doing and bless you. Thank you. And the manner in which you configure your own consciousness. We have a new brother, they come to class. He reads Course in Miracles. And the words are on the printed page. And to everyone who reads them, they convey or communicate a meaning that he has about himself. When he reads in consciousness the thought that appears, it is really initiating from his own consciousness. This is the whole basis of Course in Miracles. In a very real sense, people who study Course in Miracles are making up Course in Miracles. They also make up the authorship, the delineation of where they want to add to it, subtract from it, and configure it in their own memory patterns. Now, this is paradoxically exactly what Course in Miracles says that you do. Course in Miracles is a mind training endeavor to bring about a shift in your individual sense of reality. Period. We understand full well that when you read Course in Miracles, you are unable, obviously because you're here and have the necessity to read it, okay, to understand it. If I say to you, there are no requirements that you understand it, but only that you become it, it's very difficult for you. Inevitably, the scribes or the interpreters of Course in Miracles delineate it within their own limited framework of consciousness. They cannot do otherwise. You may take all of the so-called ecumenical ideas that are contained in Course in Miracles and prove to yourself and to perhaps the culture as a whole that there are a great many of similarities between what Course in Miracles says and what is ultimately said by all divine scripture or by all occult recognition or by all physiological or philosophical discernment. What about it? The limitation is your inability to think or conceive in a singular manner so that you would recognize that anything that you look at, you transcribe to wholeness if you are conceiving it as whole. Example, this candle is either absolutely divine, perfect, and contains the whole universe, or it is nothing. Your conception of the candle as separate from the basket is what's making you retain a sense of limitation. somebody who says to you, I don't want to study Course in Miracles because it comes from the Christian historic vernacular. What the hell does that mean? All that means is the individual in his own consciousness has constructed outside of him an idea about what Christianity is. It has no reality because there is finally nothing historically significant about explicit occurrences. They have no unity. If I say to him, well, what do you mean by that? Obviously, what he has done is question the source. He has evolved in his own karma or consciousness a definition of what Christianity is. And obviously, he's not correct. He is in a state of judgment in limited conception. If I say to you, what do you mean by that? He said, well, I'm making a comparison between Billy Graham, Pope John II, Joan of Arc, John of the Cross, the Crusades, Judas, esoteric Christianity in regard to New Jerusalem. What about it? Where is that going to get you if you have constructed an idea about Christ or about God in your own limited state? It's impossible to do. The whole basis of Course in Miracles is to teach non-judgment. Inevitably, if you have constructed yourself in the past, you are in a state of judgment of your relationship with your own thoughts. You, as Jesus would teach it in Course, you literally sort out thoughts in your own mind and project them out from you in order to ascertain the validity based on your own misconception of yourself. If I say to you, as Jesus would teach it in Course, an idea never leaves its source, you are all ideas. What about them? How do you feel about your ideas today? As you look out around you, how do you feel about your constructs? Whose constructs in conception are they if they're not yours? This is the whole basis of Course in Miracles. If you deem something to be outside of you, that is beyond your control or was not perpetrated through a conscious thought or conception of yours, you are doomed to defend yourself from it, or to interpret it, or to consider it to be separate from you. And of course it's not. The definition provided in all esoteric conglomerations of the awakening process teach non-judgment. We'll teach the Beatitudes. We'll teach the Sermon on the Mount. We'll teach the first 15 lessons of what? Of the workbook of Course in Miracles. The Master, Awakened Consciousness, Da Free John, teaches Course in Miracles. Of course. There would be no possibility of you coming into an awakening posture in your own consciousness and not teach what I am saying to you. But remember, the process of coming to that is a process of expanding your state of consciousness, or a literal transformative occurrence. And this is what's denied religiously and scientifically in the limited state. Here, listen to what, I'm going to read you just one thing. This is in Da John's new book, The Dawn Horseman Testimony, or whatever it is. It's an ancient definition of what finally, or one of the definitions, of what an awakened Christ or an avatar or a master, okay, or an enlightened consciousness is. Very simply, a vira, a realized adept, a divine man, Okay? By affirming the essential worth of the forbidden, he causes the forbidden to lose its power to pollute, to degrade, and to bind. That is an exact definition of forgiveness. He does not give the power of his own projections dominion over himself. He doesn't judge it. The process of coming to non-judgment is a transformative occurrence. If I sit here in front of you and through Course in Miracles and look at you and say, you are a divine, living Son of God, and in consciousness, the only living Son of God, or the only manifestation of consciousness in the entire universe, and perfect unto yourself, you cannot accept that from me. Yet I assure you that it's true. You are not the sum of the ideas about yourself, because the ideas about yourself are not true. Remember that you make history to conform to your own limitations. The history of man is not objective. It is subjective, because history is only man's ideas about himself and is rewritten constantly. To give a sense of objective validity to history doesn't really make any sense. All you're doing is verifying your own limited state of consciousness through the perpetration of an apparent memory or apparent past. Course in Miracles, the process of transformation, teaches you to become indiscriminate in the manner in which you think. Is this a process? You bet your boots. You bet your boots. What you read, what you have read up till this moment in Course in Miracles, and the manner in which you will read Course in Miracles tonight will be entirely different. Remember that because of the nature of the consciousness that perpetrated Course in Miracles, the insinuation of the energy, the whole of Course in Miracles is contained in a great many individual aphorisms in the book. If you want to spend a whole evening thinking about one sentence in Course in Miracles, rather than trying to assemble it in your own limitation, okay, consider a single sentence. Communication must be unlimited in order to have meaning. You understand what I said? There's no communication going on Earth. Moment by moment together, we can have a moment of total communication, as we did just at that moment. We shared a common purpose. Think about that. Once more. Communication must be unlimited in order to have meaning. Limited communication is always denial of love, because love may best be defined, okay, as unlimited communication. If I dissect you in my consciousness or give you attributes or qualities in any regard in my limited conception of you, I have condemned you, okay, through my inability to realize my own wholeness. Holy mackerel, how simple can that get? That's exactly what that sentence says, okay? Beauty. Judgment is not an attribute of God. That's all you got to know to wake up. Isn't that incredible what I just said? Judgment is not an attribute of God. You go, oh, wait a minute. He judges whether I'm doing this or I'm doing that, or this is coming or that's going, or it's big or round or fat. No. Oh. What would truth judge? Untruth? How? How would there be untruth? Look at it. You take that sentence, think about that for the rest of the day. That'll wake you right up. Why? You've got a total non-judgmental God. But what does He require of you? Confirmation to His thought. What is His thought? Your thought in truth? How did you conceive of God without making Him real? By what method are you espousing to the possibility of a truth or a unity and subsequently denying it? Of course, God doesn't judge. In this particular section of the galaxy, a master computer was dropped off about 6,500 years ago that expresses in total the unity and singleness of purpose of the universe. As the maturation of the species, known as Homo sapien, of man, matures, the energy flow directs from this computer, which is totally unequivocating and uncompromising, to the inevitable occurrence of the transformation. Okay? That's another way to express it. Express it any way you want. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. Now you got a bad problem. Now you got a bad problem. You really think that in privacy you can think about something that's not known to the entire universe. You can't. Why? You are the entire universe. There is no thought outside of you. If you are constructing in your own consciousness this, and I assure you that you are, all right, how do you subtract some ideas or thoughts that you have from others? You can't do it. It's not possible. How simple it becomes for you, if you want to look at it that way, as Jesus would say to you, you are the Savior of the earth and the only Son of God. Why would that be true reasonably? Because you have constructed the earth in your consciousness. It has no reality except that you have defined it as real. I'm letting you escape from it. Don't you see what I've given you? The power to what? To revision, to reform, to re-recognize, to transform. It's not outside of you, it's you. I've given you what? Freedom. You want to take it? Or you want to keep pretending that there's something that is going to affect you, neglecting to remember that you are the cause of this. This is the whole basis of what I know to be true. How simple it becomes, how very provincial to you, for you to acknowledge your own Christship, if you are willing to assume responsibility for your own thought constructions. Inevitably, you deny a portion of you. Why? Because you're in a limited state of consciousness. It's impossible for you to order your thoughts or conceive of a yesterday or a tomorrow or a possible action without eventually feeling guilty about it. You cannot do it because you're in a state of rejection of something. You are making decisions as though somehow you can bring about an effect. You can't. You can't. All effect has already been perpetrated and is perpetrated by your individual thought at the moment you think it. How the heck are you going to teach this? The basis, finally, of your dilemma in spiritual search is your inability to see that there could never be, finally, such a thing as potential. There is no such thing in consciousness or in the universe or in truth that is not now active but can be activated in the future. That's a strange notion. It appears to be that way, and obviously I'm teaching you in Course in Miracles that it's possible for you to activate your own karma potential. But I assure you that all the history of the schism is contained in a single flash, and that you continue to reconstruct it in your own mind. All right. So if you choose to do that, you're in a constant state of denial of your own thoughts. This is in Course in Miracles. The idea that the earth is here except in your memory is absurd. Obviously, the schism is your memory of it. You're dreaming. This is your dream. You fell asleep, remember? You fell asleep. Everything that has been constructed in the total state of consciousness is nothing but your own configuration in your dream. You have forgotten that you are the cause of this. How can this be taught to you? How can I teach an illusion? You can't. But I can show you that if I read to you a particular sentence, okay, that you can look at it, and as your frame of reference matures through your individual transformation, physically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, you will what? See in your apparent limited thought a wholeness or a structure of wholeness. Let's try another one. Some of these are very, very difficult. You must choose between total freedom and total bondage, for there are no alternatives but these. Which is a simple way of saying you're either bound totally in here forever or you're in heaven. You're free. There's no compromise. There's nothing in between. What a lovely thought. I like that. It is true, just as you fear, that to acknowledge him is to deny all that you think you know, but what you think you know was never true. All of you, individually, in your own consciousness, must come to know that the earth is not real. There is and must be a way that this can come about. But it's up to you. The experiences and the change of mind that are going on in you and in the group of Full Endeavor are extraordinary. You are being made new on a moment-by-moment basis. It's a very lovely experience. Is it a process of subtracting the limited self? Of course. Is it a process of stilling the body-brain? Yes. Transformative occurrence is not talking about the transformative occurrence. You cannot literally have an experience. You can only be an experience. My goodness. Definitions of experience, whether ecstatic or fearful, have no validity at all because they communicate nothing. They only communicate a limited idea or a separate objective observation of the occurrence. And always involve judgment. It's a strange notion that Brother Sharon presented to Brother Glorious yesterday when she said, isn't it true that there are some real good addictions along with bad addictions? As though somehow the whole dilemma of being on earth is obviously the discernment that some addictions would be better than others, when fundamentally the addiction to self, or the self-consciousness, or the judgment that there are degrees of an addiction, are what hold you in bondage. The assertion of the self. It's a lovely notion. But I assure you, for everyone that you can find that will define one addiction as being bad and another good, I can present you with somebody who has what? Defined the most incredible addiction that you could conceive of and reject as being simply divine. Do you see? It's obviously true. I knew a man that had the divine addiction of molesting 3-year-olds. Is that more or less divine than somebody who serves to purpose, who helps the poor? Nothing. It has nothing at all to do with that. Okay? The expression of the selfness in regard to the addiction, or the satisfaction derived from it, is always limited. Who knows that better than an alcoholic addicted to a pint of gin for breakfast? To say that he doesn't feel divine when he drinks is absurd. Of course he feels divine. Does that make it a divine addiction? I suppose. How do you define bondage? Does that apparently free him? Okay. Does taking another special consciousness in bondage until death do you part a kind of freedom? How do you define that? It is silly. No. Limitedness always binds. Obviously, limitation could not occur without fear. Self-sustenance, okay, is always, and this is lesson 76 in the Course in Miracles workbook, okay, is always the denial that you are under no laws but God's. You obviously have established an idea of the value of nutrition, of the value of maintaining an equilibrium in your state of consciousness. You do it, and that's why you're here. If you open up the book right now and read out loud to me lesson 76, you immediately go into a state of denial of it. It's inevitable. You are constituted on a denial of it. If you value it, you will not escape the consequences of it. Wow. Cause and effect. Of course there's no action without subsequent action. Of course there's no thought without subsequent thought. The only way, finally, listen to me, to eliminate cause and effect is what? As we would teach it in Course in Miracles, to see that cause is effect. There is absolutely, in reality, no distance between cause and effect. That's why the Father's the Son. can't have a thought that hasn't occurred. You may attempt to effectuate it later on, all right? But the whole basis of what I teach you is to shorten your conceptual distance between what you think you do and the results that are forthcoming. I'm shortening your time, brother. You think there's a time between now and when you die. There isn't. You have conceived of death, you can only die now. If you do that, you'll see your eternal. If you put it off, you'll construct a future based on your false past. It's inevitable. Can I shorten time for you? As Brother Jesus would say, we can shorten it immeasurably, which is the same thing as saying you can come into your now, and only now, and transcend to eternity. Eternity is not a long time, brother. It's no time at all. What a weird idea. People say, who wants to be in eternity if it's like this? It has nothing to do with it. You are fulfilled at this moment, and you never will be. There is nothing outside of truth. Truth is true and nothing else is true. There are no degrees of truism. Truth is not relative. No wonder you're in pain and fear. No wonder. You think there's justice in limitation. You search for it. You eye for an eye it. You set up quid pro quos. I'll give you this, you give me that back. All based on limitation. There isn't any such thing as that. You are everything or you're nothing. How many times have I taught this? How many times I keep saying? I've been saying this for 10,000 years. You stood on the mount 2,000 years ago and told me this, brother. You said to me, don't resist evil. All right. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the peacemakers. Wow. Blessed are those who hunger and serve after righteousness. Blessed are those who are persecuted in my name. How many times? Your kingdom is not of this world. So know ye not you must be born again. Wow. Again and again and again. And finally, what? I come into your sleeping state, into your dead state, and I tell you there is no death, that you are eternal in your own consciousness. Period. What am I making you look at? You can't escape from yourself. I'm causing you, in your own consciousness, to go into a state of acceptance of yourself. You could never come to God by denial of yourself or your brother, who is you. Period. Denial is always hate. Acceptance and forgiveness is always love. The incredible discovery you can only give to yourself is the biggest step that you could ever take in so-called conception. It's your absolute recognition that you are the creator of this. And that all creation finally is the giving of the certainty of your consciousness. If it is not refined, you will project it. If it is true, you will extend it, because an idea in truth never leaves its source. That's how simple it is. Over and over again, we say to you, you are the universe. There is only one state of consciousness. It is you. There is nothing outside of you. This is the highest level at which any attempt at bringing about a transformation can be presented to you. And that's the occurrence that's going on. It's always up to you. You cannot lay or foster the blame or give the responsibility to your own projections, because you have already limited them by the definition of yourself. Group consciousness will never find God. Group consciousness is false by definition. All consciousness is singular. We may get together in groups and attempt through therapy to bring about transformative occurrences. This is an extremely high reach in so-called psychology or transpersonal psychology. But finally, each consciousness in his own configuration reaches the inevitable truth of himself, and not through commiseration, okay, through recognition. Everybody hear me? The total in reality is never shared. It is total only in you individually. Wow. What do we teach if it's not subjectivity, finally? Imagine that. That's a very fearful concept for you, brother. It's very difficult. You keep wanting to give honor and value to your own limitation. And you'll do it by constructing family. You'll do it by constructing self-defensive mechanisms. You'll do anything you can to keep from going through the process that will show you that you are in fact eternal and all conscious. I come to tell you that it's inevitable. Okay. And it will come about in you. And each moment that you make the choice to turn to it, you turn away from the falsity of your own projections. How simple. Full commitment brings immediate result. So does infinite patience. Full commitment and infinite patience are the same thing. Prepare ye the way of the Lord. Lo, I am with you always. Well, I thought you said you went to prepare away from me. The consciousness of the universe is here or it's nowhere. Incredible tendency to come here and then carry something different out with you. It is only you. That's what you're coming to know. Thank you. Wholeness is a state of consciousness. It finally has nothing to do with the coming about of it. The single development now coming into the earth is the always present truth in this limited configuration, that knowledge can be gained by a shift in consciousness or a transformative occurrence. This is very rudely denied sociologically, of course. There would be an implication that somehow someone would be more advanced in his ideas and be able to exercise through ideas control over his sociological situations. And in fact, this is what occurs in the world, of course. Everyone finally attempts to exercise control over their sociological situations. It's inevitable that they do that. The notion that there is an involvement of genetics, if you will, or karma in the response of the limited, apparently limited consciousness or entity causes the idea of varying degrees of maturation, which affords for all sorts of strange hierarchies, ranging from perhaps the Hindu system of the Brahma to the untouchable, or the king to the commoner, and includes all of man's ideas of himself in limited association with the final truth of his godhood. For a Christ or an advanced so-called consciousness to come among you and teach that you may now undergo a transformative occurrence that will bring about a new consciousness in you, finally must be rigorously denied. The whole basis of your consciousness is on independence from Source. There are many consciousnesses now coming into the New Age thinking where they are the cause of this. The direct quotes now emanating from all recent spiritual literature, and as far back as man has been here, indicates that your conception is what's giving this any form of reality it may seem to have to you. And of course that's very true. But what goes hand in hand with that, and here's the difficulty, okay? In one sentence I say to you, you are responsible for this. You. And in the next sentence I say to you, you did not make yourself. Now you're caught. If you carry that a step further, what I said to you is the earth is your construct. Okay. But the earth is no more real than you are in its actual communication or creative energy. We teach only come home to Source. It is a giant step indeed to get community, establishment in this limited phase of consciousness, to even acknowledge that truth can be gained through an occurrence, through a transformative process, although it's taught everywhere in the religious community. The scientific community is inevitably faced with the dilemma of genius, as is art, and inevitably denies it. And more particularly denies their own obvious potential, since it is their observation of the art that was brought about through their own configuration. The truth is that if you don't extend the idea of transformation, there is no possibility that you will ever communicate. It is the one single thing that you can say in the illusion. This can be overcome. This can be recognized. We can take your apparent diversity and bring it into singularity. We can show you a new way of looking at things. Perhaps we will show you that the most obvious occurrence here is the consciousness's realization that he has constructed death. And in the limited state in which you have conceived yourself, I assure you that you're going to die. But what a strange thing to do. Contained within you and your ideas, since you have expressed it, is an idea of truth and eternity. Why is it then that everything that you see here in limited perception obviously is in a state of dying? Psychical. Keeps being born and maturing and dying. It's in a framework of time and space. Because you're in a framework of time and space. Is there turmoil and pain, anger finally, in the idea of your ultimate and inevitable death? I would think there very would be. Quite obviously, all of your manifestations of disease, apparent hatred, attempts at communion, must be based on the idea of your ultimate death. That's absurd. That doesn't make any sense. But yet, if I present you with the absolute proposition of eternity, because of the nature of your limited construction, you deny me and actively pursue retention of the limited consciousness that must inevitably lead you to demise or annihilation. How unreasonable of you. What would be reasonable about death? What is reasonable really about pain? Limitation. Obviously, the basis of limited consciousness is recognition of a form of selfness identified as existing in a state of limitedness or lack, with the obvious need to sustain that level of consciousness, to survive. If I present you with a proposition that nothing that is not forever is real, it requires your double take. The notion that you have come into that this is your construct will lead you directly to the truth, because it allows you to configurate the absoluteness that nothing is outside of you. Very simply, there is nothing without your conception of it, obviously. How paradoxical the notion of objectivity. notion of separation. It seems so absurd that anybody would look at the two things being separate. Obviously, their construction then is based on not knowing apparently what the object is that they're viewing. That's crazy. That's senseless. So they study the limitation instead of the wholeness. They philosophize on their own false configuration, on their own apartness. Wow. As you go through your regenerative process, you begin to stand aside from this chaos. And this can be perceived as very conflictual. You no longer feel needs to participate in sociological death ritual of relationships which reject, or the intense need to accomplish limited goals. These things lose their meaning to you. But since earth consciousness is only derived from memory, all of the entities in states of duality around you are constructing you in their own limited parameters of consciousness. If you deviate from that and they are unable to adjust to it, they will attack you or deny you. Of course. If you look at it from your own conception, it would be obvious to you that since you are the creator or miscreator of everything about you, the only thing that could ever cause you pain or fail you, okay, would be your own idea about it. Obviously, everybody here is going through anger and pain and attack and defense because of their own ideas. If we take the next step, we come to the inevitable conclusion that you are being attacked by your own thoughts. And of course you are. You are only memory. You're a limited memory machine. The direct necessity for the body in perception is based on the retention of memory, of schism. It's all in you. It's not outside of you. Every idea that you're having in sorting out is still with you. You have an idea of beauty, but it's always in relationship with ugliness. So you shun or put aside, apparently in your limited state, the ugliness. It does not go away. How do you exercise ugliness or evilness? The devil, the limited part of you, the configurations of attack and defense. You can never overcome apparent evil by combating it. We stand on the mount and say, resist not evil. Literally, do not defend yourself from your own ideas. The only thing that could ever be limiting or evil is your thought. Your kingdom is not of this world. You're not from here. All of your equations of apparent justice lead nowhere. All of your configurations of give and take and have and hold and live and die have no value whatever except the value that you have given them in your mind. Listen to me. If you give the earth value, it has value. You do not get rid of it by establishing its valuableness and then attempting to give it up. Cool. So we teach be whole and true and real and love and extend and be defenseless. Mostly we teach forgive. Never mind the equation that you're only forgiving your own thoughts. That'll come next. That you can only give to yourself. That'll come next. That you can only finally forgive yourself. That will come next. That we finally teach an occurrence of know yourself. That will come to you. Dare you start with the premise that you are the only living Son of God? How else can you come to the truth if you don't start with the premise of truth? If no idea is outside of you, who then is truth? Who is all consciousness in the universe? There is nothing separate from you. You hold the universe in the palm of your hand. How will the earth be saved then? Okay. How will we return to love and beauty and truth? When you change your own mind, and only in that manner. Come reason with me about the inevitability of your consciousness. Attempt within your own framework of memory and consciousness to conceive of death now. See how the veil comes over your head? Attempt to look at darkness. Attempt to see, attempt to consciousize annihilation. Do you see that the awakening process is the death process? The subtraction of the limited you is all that the transformation really is. The resurrection, the enlightenment. The history of the universe is contained in you. There is no thought of variation in the construct of consciousness that is not contained in you. You are the I Ching. You are the master genetic code. You are all of history. Religiously, you are the way and the light. Scientifically, everything arises from your consciousness. If there is nothing outside of you, all apparent parts must contain the whole. I assure you they do. The whole could never be the sum of its parts if you are the summer. One plus one could never be two, for the plus is only you. Wherever two or more are gathered, I am there. Of course. How simple. Make the stew then, divine cooks. And when you're finished, jump into the pot. What an incredible idea of freedom ensues with the realization or the acceptance of the responsibility for the universe. The incredible knowledge that the universe is finally benign, that nothing ever really stands opposed to anything. Nothing is in friction with reality or truth. Wow. You lay down your rusty saber, you stand aside from the fray, and you say, I won't participate in this any longer. How easy it is to see historically that the idea of Christhood must be persecuted, must be crucified, of course. The whole basis of configuration of consciousness in regard to establishment and limitation is based on the idea of death. If I come among you and say you cannot die, what I'm really saying to you is that if you will come with me, the earth will collapse. Of course. There's a beautiful quote from Brother Jesus Christ in Course in Miracles, where he says, you really think that you came here and found the earth in duality waiting for you to bring about its transformation. On the contrary, if you're not here in your own consciousness, the earth is not here either. That's why you are defined as the only living Son of God. There are no idle thoughts. Nothing in truth is discrete. What would it be discrete from? To what purpose would it stand aside from unity? Or could? No, no. All around you is energies manifest in duality, broken up again and again and again. You look for reason in it. You look for it in the limited state of your own consciousness to bring about a unity. And that's your sole purpose in consciousness. To escape the chaos that you have created. Wow. To remember that you are the cause and not the effect. Wow. To realize that you are only Adam dreaming. And will awaken at this moment to the truth of you. And all your yesterdays are gone. You can't construct your tomorrows. In giving up your yesterdays, you take all of your historic incidences and perfect them in the glory of the realization of their inevitable capacity to bring about your awakening. You do not stand in judgment of your karma, of your past experiences. You release your resentments. You forgive. You extend your love. And you come home. Is heaven real? You bet your boots it's real. There's another beautiful quote of Brother Jesus where he says, "Nothing outside of heaven is alive," which means that you are in a deep sleep with your death wish. The construction of death is fearful and hateful and denies truth. Anything that could die could never have been alive. Wow. Therefore, be grateful for the occurrence in you. You be humble before the majesty of the universe. The truth will be made known unto you. You will recognize in your own self the fullness and wholeness of all consciousness. You will extend from you only the truth of you as you have recognized yourself. Stand aside then. It is impossible for you to do a wrong. How difficult it is for you to accept absolute forgiveness. How strong the notion of cause and effect. How difficult the final concept that cause and effect stand as a single thing, with no time between. In our transformation teachings, we are shortening time to bring you into the moment of your unity and of your truth. Is it experiential? It is only experiential. All around you are rays and energies and sounds of a creative universe. Your dilemma lies in the notion of potential. From the idea of potential, you create futurizing or time. All consciousness is full-blown at all moments. Everything that could ever be is running full tilt. Wow. Wow. And you are it. Don't bind yourself. Be free. You cast your bread upon the water. Is it a full endeavor? Does it require purpose? Yes. Full commitment brings immediate result. Of course. You are individually very select. You are indeed chosen. Without you, heaven could never be complete. We are at the omega point together. Therefore, be of good cheer. What does Brother Jesus say in Course in Miracles? Blasphemy can be defined as depression and anger and resentment. Wow. You can't blaspheme against God, but you can against yourself, can't you? The truth has nothing to do with this. Only you have to do with this. And in that acknowledgement is indeed your salvation. One and one are not then two. One and one are three. Then one and one are one. What an extraordinary occurrence. See that light. To know that it's really happening to you. You are in this process. Not someone else. Okay? Not someone historic. Not a guru. Not a Jesus. The recognition that you as man become man-God. Just you. Wow. Teach that, brother. That brings the denial to the surface. It's a direct confrontation with the limited self. Is the ending foreseeable? Indeed it is. You have constructed it in your own consciousness and are bringing it about. Thank you. We thank you, dear brother, for the occurrence of you and your Christhood. Wow. We never could have done it without you. You are indispensable to the truth equation. And your creations await you in joy and harmony, and love and truth. Welcome home. Welcome home. On the tape, the single most difficult thing, I've said this a lot of times, is that this transfiguration, that this enlightenment, that this transformative occurrence involves all of you. It is not limited to your body, brain, for goodness sake. Okay? It involves your ductless glands, if you will. But not in separation from the rest of you. It's total, I would have to be totally involved. You cannot bring about a spiritual transformation without a bodily change. It can't be done, of course not. The whole basis of the apocalypse or the revelation is the movement of the passion within your body, for crying out loud. Is that too esoteric now? Wow, the High Prophet contained in the Edgar Cayce readings in the 30s. The beautiful book on a comparison of the simile, the metaphor, the allegory of the consciousness of the body in relationship to the ductless glands and the churches in Revelation. Holy mackerel. You are all history. And that occurrence can bring about some very strange aberrations within your own state of configuration, of course, and will. Finally, it requires acceptance of all of you. Everything that happens to you now is in direct correlation with your own transformative occurrence. Would have to be. Would have to be, of course. It is going on in you. Yes, indeed it is. Wow. All disease is a denial of spiritual energy or an inability to create in truth. Of course. If disease is real, there is no truth. You cannot construct disease or pain or sorrow outside of you and then repair it. It's a strange notion. Construction of an idol, a limited God. A caprice God. Wow. All power is given unto you in heaven and earth. Greater things will you do than I have done. Where is Armageddon then? Huh? Where is this incredible deliverance? Only in you. Yes. Very lovely, thank you. Finally, I want to put this on. I want you to hear this. Finally, what's occurring in full endeavor, and this is in Course in Miracles, this is a course in reasoning to the truth of mastership or Christhood or avatarship. Okay? That's what we teach. The Master Da John, Brother Franklin, incredible awakening consciousness, teaches the Eastern tradition with a lot of Western vernacular the idea of his Christhood. He is an awakened. He is the only living Son of God, of course. We're just going to take that a step further, and he is much aware of this, and present you with the inevitable conclusion, since there is only one final state of consciousness in truth, that you must be that state. Okay? Now, you can teach it out of Course in Miracles. If you will look at Brother Dajan from the Course in Miracles, or the Jesus idea, and forgive him totally, okay, which is really all that we teach, you will recognize that indeed he is the only living Son of God. Who do you think is sitting around me here? Of course. The fault always lies in the judgment of someone somehow being what? Further advanced or further behind you in his spiritual acumen. But remember, if you judge him at all, you judge him falsely. And there's the problem. Inevitably, in coming to the truth, we create stages or hierarchies of consciousness. And this is in the sense of apparent reality very true. But the second that a notion arrives in you that you are in the fourth stage and identify yourself and are working on the fifth or the sixth or the seventh, that's absurd. The moment that you acknowledge the possibility of a seventh stage, you literally entered that stage and denied it. You could not configure the notion of God without being true. You are in a constant state, obviously, of schism. There's a false notion in association with time. I want to say this too, that some particular identities or configurations are born with more capacities than others. That'll keep you here a long time, brother. I'm sorry, but it's not true. You immediately, through recognizing another apparent Christhood, have denied your own, unless you will recognize it fully, in which case you will see that you are only him.
You're trying to say the Jews aren't the chosen people?
Yeah, we say that the definition of Jew is chosen, historically, and that all who have come into a configuration of apparent duality are chosen and have been chosen in the truth establishment. It's inevitable. It has anything to do, obviously, with race or establishment on earth. But there is a big one chromosome difference between a chimpanzee and a human being. You bet your boots. That's the chosen element. If 99% genetically, chromosomally, of an ape is the same as a man, obviously that's the other 1% that is the chosen part. Okay, but the dilemma is this. The chimpanzee is perfect in its chimpanziness. I've said this many times. Okay? You obviously are the only nutty one. You're the one that's in the denial of yourself. The only thing in the universe that doesn't know what it is a limited state of consciousness that has already acknowledged its wholeness. Wow. Strange notion. Strange idea that you could be more than one thing. Never mind what it is. The truth of you is always the truth of you, not in variation, but in singularity. Wow. Can't teach that. Wow. The universe is a sense of consciousness. It is a beingness. Obviously, there's no necessity for truth to identify itself. That's silly and doesn't. Thank you. More later.